There we go. Okay, thanks for coming to this session. It's about Scouts opportunities after Explorers. So the main focus is on those roles that 18 to 25-year-olds can go into when they leave. So it's great if you're an Explorer watching this, or a network member who's maybe looking for something for a new challenge. And equally, if you're supporting those sort of people. Also, if you'd like those sort of people to come and volunteer with you, it's great. Or if you just want to know a bit more about what other Scouts opportunities are out there, you don't have to be under 25. The only role that you'd have to be is in that age bracket is as a youth commissioner. So everything else that we talk about tonight is on the cards for anyone. There are some really exciting, interesting and different things that we're going to talk about. So we'll just get going. If at any point you have any questions, do just drop them in the chat or shout them out. We're very happy to be interrupted. And just sort of a heads up, the presentation won't take the full session, so there's plenty of time for questions or for an early night. So we'll go with that.
Fantastic. And the other thing I will just add is that this session works hand in hand with the session tomorrow about employability in Scouting as well.
Thank you very much. So network is the main draw for 18 to 25s. When you leave Explorers, hopefully you will know that network exists and you'll know how to get involved. Explorers is run by a district, as is network. However, Explorers is often run in several different units, sort of dotted about geographically. Network runs as one district network in almost every situation. And if you want to get involved in network and you don't know who to contact, talk to someone on the district team. The youth commissioner should be able to point you in the same direction, because they should be a member of network because they're the right age. But then also there should be, or there might be, a network commissioner. If not, the DC should know what's happening. It might be that there isn't a network in your district, or there isn't an active one. But that's not to stop you from bringing your Explorer mates together and bringing some others in from school or from college or from uni or wherever you are, and getting it kick-started. So Nirav, what's special about network that's different to Explorers? Because I think that's often something that people don't quite grasp.
So network is quite interesting because there is a lot more ownership over the section, because everyone's an adult, and network plan their own things. Not to say that Explorers don't, but Explorers are guided by their leaders. And at network, everyone is over 18. So you kind of work together to come up with activities, the program, and also working together with the top awards. And we'll go into a little bit more detail. And it was also touched earlier on, but the Queen Scout Award is a real highlight of network.
Cool. And yeah, network program is slightly different as well. The ultimate aim, as Nirav just said, is the Queen Scout Award for most most under 25s. But the program is split by international adventure and community. And rather than getting uniform badges, network members can earn virtual badges. And I guess you email them to each other or something, maybe something a bit more appropriate, like Facebook, or I don't know, maybe even Instagram for the next generation of network. So yeah, network is really different, but it's so exciting, and it's sort of the ultimate youth-shaped section, because although there's a network commissioner, which we'll come on to in a little bit, it's entirely planned and run by network members. So that's network, that's sort of the final youth section, and that's where you go after Explorers. And the last thing to say about network is it's really flexible. If you're going to university, you might only be home 3 times a year. And just because of the way that the network meetings might fall, you could only come to 1 a year. That's absolutely fine. Equally, if your network runs once a month and you attend them all, that's absolutely fine. Network in most places is free to join, but you pay to play. So some activities will be just free of charge because we're scouts and we tend to do things that are fairly back to basics, whether it be up to campsite doing some fire lighting, but also network members go and organise exciting other things under the theme of adventure, maybe high ropes or climbing or something. There might be a cost involved with that, but then you only pay for what you do. Network is similar to being an adult volunteer in that way. There's no membership, so you can come as much or as little as you like.
Yeah, and also in addition to that, with network, it doesn't stop a young person. If a young person between 18 to 25 is not part of a network, then it doesn't stop them from doing the Queen Scout Award. They can still take part in the Queen Scout Award if they are volunteering as an adult in a section as well. So the top awards are not restricted to just network.
The other thing that young people, well, another thing, because we're going to talk about a few different things, another thing that you can do when you turn 18 is go into what will probably be quite typically known as a leadership role. But we're going to look at a few different leadership roles next, and we'll talk about how they differ from each other and how they might be suited to different people.
Great.
Okay.
Go on, Adam. Oh, should I do it?
Yeah, you go for this one and then I'll take the next one.
Okay. So there are various different roles, and becoming a leader is really rewarding for yourself and also for young people. A role that is, one role is the section assistant role. And this is for a person that wants to take part and volunteers, wants to volunteer with a section. The good thing about this role is that they don't have to work towards a full wood badge. So if an adult doesn't want to do the full collection of modules towards the wood badge, then this role is great. It's just the getting started. It's just the basic GDPR, those kinds of modules that they have to do. So that's a section assistant role. Then we've got the assistant section leader role. This is a wood badge role. And they will be, this is a uniform role, and they have the opportunity to do the full wood badge training and be involved in a section. And it could be more involved in how the section is run. And then we have the section leader, and they are the ones that lead the section, and they are supported by their assistant section leaders and section assistants. And the section leader is there to make sure that the section continues to run smoothly, and that the section delivers a quality, balanced program.
Absolutely. And I think the key thing to stress to people that are thinking about becoming a leader of some description is that your Beavers, Cubs, Scouts or Explorers won't see these guys as any different. They'll probably identify a main leader because they're the one that sends all the annoying emails and make sure that they pay their camp fees and subs. But ultimately, you're coming along, you're having fun, you're taking a part in planning and organising the programme, and you're making a difference to these young people. And if you've been a scout for a while, then you'll know exactly what it feels like to have amazing adult volunteers delivering programs with and for you. But equally, if you're 18 to 25 and thinking about getting involved in Scouts, or any age really, you've got the whole range of things, but you're delivering that experience, and it's incredibly rewarding. Sometimes you might want to do the sort of things that a leader would do, but you maybe don't have as much time, or you're not able to make as much commitment due to some sort of external factor. So then there are a few other roles that do similar things, but work in different ways. So SAS members, we'll try and remember to explain all of the acronyms. So we're not joining the army and becoming a Bear Grylls in that way. Instead, we're becoming a Bear Grylls, joining the Scout Active Support Unit. Some districts have them, some groups have them, the county has a few. So So one of the groups that I'm involved with, I'm a member of the Scout Active Support. I'm not a section leader at that group, but I, for example, have a shooting permit, so I could go along and support with that. Or if the Beavers were having a fun day, I might go along and support with an element of the logistics there. And that's really flexible. You could also go and help at a section meeting. Some SAS members have skills, others just have the go-getting attitude that they just want to make a difference. And the lower age limit for an SAS is 18, and there's no upper age limit. So perfect for those leaving explorers who want to still be involved some way.
There always has been a stigma attached to SAS members, and a lot of people say CSAS members as being scouters that have been in the movement and for a very, very long time, and they might have now retired and then wanted to take on an SAS role. But as Adam has said, it is open for everyone from 18 onwards, and we really want to see more adults in scouting that are younger, that take part in active support units.
Absolutely, and I think the last thing to mention is that SASUs, SAS units, are a little bit like subcommittees in some ways, that they can have sort of a specific target or remit. So particularly at county level, we've got Duke of Edinburgh Scout Active Support, we've got a Tomahawk one, a water activities one, a mountaineering one. I can't remember them all. There are too many to list, but some Scout Active Support units are just general support, which is brilliant, and that tends to be what you need locally. But others can be sort of specific, helping at a campsite or with a specific activity type. And that leads quite nicely on to the next role that we can talk about, and that's skills instructors. And they're not used as a role all that often, because they usually fall under sort of a section assistant or a SAS member. But you can have them at group and district levels, certainly, and county levels. A skills instructor is someone who instructs a skill. So that might be climbing, shooting. They usually have a permit of some description, but equally, their skill could be pioneering and knots, and you don't need a permit to tie a knot. So it's a great way for someone to help out in a very specific, targeted way, and they've probably learned that skill at Scouts. If they've learned it elsewhere, that's brilliant, because we're adding something else to Scouts. But if they've learned that skill at Scouts, why not bring it back to Scouts and give it to the next generation, so that then they can be the next generation of leaders. So skills instructors can be a nice role to do, because it's then entirely flexible, because most sections don't do knots every week or shooting every week in that respect. There's another role which is again just as flexible, and it's a supporter role, and you can have again group, district or county supporters, and these roles are very much tailored to what the sort of appointing line manager and adult volunteer want to get out of it. So for example, in my district, we've got a district supporter who works on our Explorer team, and she's brilliant, and she takes on certain tasks that our Explorer Scout Commissioner gives her, supporting young leaders and getting Explorer feedback. That doesn't really fit into another role, because she's at uni and she's not very local. So it supporting in your own terms, with sort of in an agreement with what you're going to do, where it doesn't quite fit into another role. And then the final leadership role that I'm going to mention is the ESL-YLs, loads of letters. It's the Explorer Scout Leader who supports the Young Leaders Scheme, otherwise known as the Young Leader, which does sound a bit odd if you say it quite a few times in a row. And again, that's a brilliantly flexible role, because most young leader units don't meet on a weekly basis. They might meet monthly or termly, or they might be a virtual unit that just meets for training. And this role is coordinating a programme across the district to support young leaders, whether that be delivering training, planning and running socials, or even supporting with mission sign-off and appointing or giving GSLs young leaders to appoint in different groups, fielding inquiries. So it's great if you want to do it remotely, but equally if you want to do it where you are still, but you just want to have a slightly different impact, and you don't want to go and run a section every week. It's again brilliantly rewarding because you are growing these young people to become the leaders and to take over from you, hopefully, but also getting the fun elements because you're talking to, you could have like 50 plus young leaders in your district in some places, so brilliant. I don't do that role explicitly, but I support with that role, helping to coordinate young leader training in my district, and it is great fun, and perfect for someone who might be going away as well. Those are the leadership roles that we could think of, but there's probably some more as well, and we'll also talk about some other sort of supporter roles later on that young people and anyone else again can get involved with. But it just goes to show that to be a leader, you don't have to be there every week. You don't have to bring a specific set of skills. You can do everything very targeted and on your terms. And that's going to become a theme over the course of the evening. Now, if you joined us at 7 p.m. last night, you might know what this word means: governance. And we'll go through the roles, and then you'll hopefully sort of refresh yourself as to what they are. So Nirav, let's do the same again. You take the first few slightly more common ones that people would think of, and then I'll break them down, if that's okay.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, so each group, district, and the county has an exec, as we're probably aware of. And the exec contains a number of roles, each with different responsibilities. So the first one, hopefully we have a list. Oh, okay, right, it's like that. Okay, fine. So yeah, with each group, district, and county has an exec, and then there are subcommittees, and the subcommittees support the exec. And the subcommittees could be to do with, for example, finance. There could be a subcommittee to do with, it could be a whole range of different things. There could be one for activities, and it's up to the group, district, and county exec to set up and say what subcommittees that they would like. And they are separate committees that report to the executive committee. In addition to that, there is the Appointments Advisory Committee, and that is at district level and at county level. Over the next few months, there will be some changes that will happen to the appointments process, and the headquarters will announce that later. So those are the different committees. For some groups, they might not have subcommittees, and they might just work with their exec committees. It's all down to what is best placed locally.
So I might have slightly stolen Nirav's thunder there, but I'm going to break down the different roles that you could have in all of these different places. So all committees in Scouts are chaired by someone, and they're usually appointed as a chair in that respect. So your executive committees have a chair, your subcommittees will have a chair, who will then usually report back to the exec, and the Appointments Advisory Committee has a chair. And a lot of chairs in Scouts, in fact, no, a lot of charity chairs in general across the charity sector are of a more experienced nature. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's great to have experience and skills and knowledge, but that should be across the exec as a whole. So there's no restrictions to stop an 18-year-old from becoming a chair of a exec or a subcommittee or anything. It's down to the GSL, DC or county commissioner to nominate that person. But other than that, then there's no restriction there. And then also you've got the other sort of key officer roles that we talk about on executive committees, and that's the treasurer and the secretary. And a lot of people go, oh, well, I sort of know what the chair does because they steer everything in the right direction. But what does the treasurer and the secretary actually do? and they're full members of the exec, but they also take responsibility for a few things. So the treasurer, probably the one that people are more switched on with, the treasurer picks up the finances and makes sure that the accounts are presented at the exec and the AGM, and they might have another exec member that supports them. And that's what they do. And they sometimes will coordinate insurance and things like that. And then the secretary will make sure that the exec or the committee that they're working with is sort of operating within their remit. They might have a copy of the constitution to just say, oh yeah, we've got to do this. They might take the minutes. Sometimes you have an additional administrator. And they might be responsible for some sort of reporting in some way. And they tend to sort of steer things in the right direction by getting minutes and agendas out on time. And with the chair, the secretary and the treasurer roles, there's no restriction to say that it can't be an 18-year-old that does them. It could be great for someone who's just turned 18 or under 25, who's learning something to do with finance to become a treasurer, because then they're getting hands-on experience in either cash or accruals accounting, and they're getting not ahead of their class as such, but they're getting the hands-on practical learning with it. And it's flexible. Just because an expense claim will come in from your scout leader at 11 p.m. one night doesn't mean you don't have to process it there and then. It could be 2 a.m. in the morning when you've just finished all of your lectures and you're still hardcore because you took maybe one too many coffees. Or it could be at sort of 11 a.m. in the morning after you finish your first lecture and you've just got a bit of time before lunch. Equally, it could be if you do shift work or if you've got a family to fit it around. These roles are really super flexible. But then as well as the officer roles, you've got the exec committee member roles and subcommittee member roles. So to be on an exec, you're all there for a reason, but you don't have to take on the extra responsibilities of an officer role. The reason we sort of split them out is to highlight that a young person can do them, as can anyone else. And it's often, young people could be overlooked. And the thing with the treasurer and the secretary role is they're elected by the council of the relevant level. So all you've got to do is say, yeah, I want to do it. And there's usually not another volunteer to do it if there's a vacancy. So assuming that everyone's happy with it, they'll elect you in and you'll get support from the chair and the relevant commissioner.
There is also a deputy chair role, and that is at group, district and county level as well. And sometimes that could be a useful role for a young person to play in a deputy chair role, and the chair could help the deputy chair to kind of lead meetings and see the role of a deputy as being a role that might that actually takes over as the chair in the future. So sometimes young people might, if you get a young person that wants to be a chair, that they might not feel that they're able to take on that role straight away. Then there is a deputy chair role as well, which is quite popular sometimes.
That reminds me, something interesting I've seen in another county is that on their county exec, the deputy chair role is for an 18 to 25 member. I mean, I'm not saying that's right everywhere, because in some places it can be a struggle to recruit these people because they'll go off to university or they'll move into a bigger town to get sort of a wider job market. But in some places, if you really want to embed 18 to 25 members in your committee, that could be a great thing to add to your constitution. And just Nirav mentioning the deputy chair role reminded me that I've seen that happen and work really well in another county. So we've spoken about leadership, we've spoken about governance, and next we're going to talk about management.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so these roles are the scouts have a sort of a separate managers training scheme, and that's for managers and supporters. So where we're talking about management, we're talking about people that do those sort of management or deputy or assistant management roles. And we're putting all of those together because the roles are fairly similar. It's just the responsibilities might be a little bit different.
Right. Okay. So one of the manager roles in Scouting is the District Youth Commissioner and Deputy District Youth Commissioner. The majority of districts have a District Youth Commissioner, and some districts have Deputy District Youth Commissioners. One thing to add with manager roles are that they don't always have to be one person. And like other roles as well, roles can be role shared. And it's becoming a lot more common nowadays because of people's lifestyles and people's commitments to have two GSLs, to have two district commissioners, to have teams put in place. And that is really, really useful. And I do think that that is the future moving forward in Scouting. It's been seen very, very successful across groups and districts and in other counties as well. So the District Youth Commissioner is, as we've explained before about the District Youth Commissioner role briefly, and they are supported by Deputy District Youth Commissioners, and they are at the district level.
And I should also say, we should have put another slash there for county youth commissioners and deputy county youth commissioners, because broadly the roles are the same, and these are the special roles that only 18 to 25s can do. And they are a great way of ensuring that you're going to get that support when you go into a manager role, because you've obviously got the youth commissioners in the sort of organisation up the umbrella, but then you've also got your line manager as your DC or your county commissioner to support you as well. The next one's quite an interesting one. It will usually be, most manager roles will usually be a young person's first time explicitly line managing people. They might have managed projects or teams before, but sort of where the buck stops we're talking about. And Group Scout Leader or Deputy Group Scout Leader, who used to be called Assistant Group Scout Leaders, is another great thing for young people to be involved with. Most won't go straight into this sort of role when they turn 18. They might do a couple of years in a section or be a youth commissioner for a 3-year term and then go into it. But there's nothing to stop an 18 to 25 member becoming a GSL or a DGSL. Again, you might be a DGSL or even a GSL, but probably a Deputy Group Scout Leader. You could be the day you turn 18, and then you're learning your skills and your trade from the Group Scout Leader, taking responsibility for a specific remit, such as the programme, because you've been a young leader for 4 or 5 years and you really know what you're doing. And as with all of these roles, you get the full manager and supporter complement of training to help you along the way and to learn what your management style might be. And GSL and DGSL roles also sit on the group exec, so you get to see that side of it as well.
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention, which is quite interesting with the DYC and DDYC, is that the District Youth Commissioner is an ex officio member to the exec, whereas the Deputy District Youth Commissioner isn't. And that obviously is different for the group roles, because both a GSL and DGSL are both exec ex officios. For a desk, so desk is a district role. It's the District Explorer Scout Commissioner, and the District Explorer Scout Commissioner is the person that runs the Explorer Scout provision in the district. And they should be seen as working in close partnership with the GSL and sometimes the Deputy GSL as well. And it's really important for the District Explorer Scout Commissioner to work with the GSL, especially when a scout turns 14 and they move on to explorers, and thinking about that moving up. So it's a really interesting role, and the desk is the one that should be seen as helping with that. And the District Explorer Scout Commissioner, I don't know whether we've added DESA on. We might have, I don't know, as there's another bullet point. We'll go on to the DESA one in shortly, hopefully. The District Explorer Scout Commissioner is also a trustee on the district exec as well.
Next on this list anyway, we've got the District Scout Network Commissioner. So the DSNC, it's not as, it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as desk. This adult volunteer is over 18. Because network is an under 25 section, network members need to be under 25 or between 18 and 25, but the network commissioner doesn't. It's a great role for a network. A network commissioner is a great role for an 18 to 25 because they're shaping something that they're going to get a direct benefit from. But then equally, it could be done by anyone. I'm involved in 2 networks, and one of them, the network commissioner, he thoroughly enjoyed his time in network, so he has come back as a network commissioner. Whereas in the other network, the network commissioner is a network member, so he's helping to shape his and his friends' experiences. So there's no right answer. You just need the right person for the right role, really. And this adult volunteer they sit on the exec, they represent network at the district exec, and they are responsible for making sure that network is happening in the way that the network members want it to. They don't go and run the activities. They might be asked to by the network to run an activity, but they're not directly responsible for putting together and running the program. They just oversee it all and provide support where it's needed. And I think that's about all there is to say about the network commissioner role. It isn't a humongous role with lots of line management responsibility like some of the others could be. But then again, it isn't just a small role. There's a lot of responsibility there, but it's broken down and it's really flexible again, just like as we were talking about at the beginning, network is. Okay, and then I think the next one is the one that we might all have thought about. It's district commissioner, deputy district commissioner, and assistant district commissioners. So we all know what the DC does. They're responsible for scouts in the district. The deputy district commissioners, they then support the district commissioner in a certain way that's defined by the 2 of them. But then assistant district commissioners are quite an interesting one because they usually take on specific focuses. And I know, Nirav, you were an assistant district commissioner at one point before your county youth commissioner role. So would you talk a bit about that specific role that you did and others that were working around you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite an interesting experience when I did the ADC role because I was a very young adult in scouting. It was a really rewarding role because I was able to bring a lot of new ideas to the district team. And my focus was looking at the growth and development of my district. And we were able to run various different projects, and I was able to support GSLs with their growth and their development. And we were able to bring my section. I was really, really pleased to be able to bring our district numbers up through the events and things that we did. I was actually at university when I did an ADC role. And it was quite interesting trying to fit in the commitment of an ADC role in with all of my university. And one thing I think people think of, especially young people, when it comes to these line manager roles, is it could be quite daunting, it could be quite scary, but that shouldn't put them off. There is the opportunity for them to get support. And roles in scouting all have a line manager, and they've got that line manager to support them with that role. So that shouldn't be seen as a way to get scared about the role. And the role should work for you as well. So the line manager should be able to help you, which for me, it was a really good experience to have had that role before I started as a county youth commissioner. And moving off of the district DC, DDC and ADC roles, we have got
it's not on the list, but you're going to say it.
I don't know if it's on. Is it? Are you referring to DESA?
Yes, it's not on the list, but you're going to say it. Go for it.
Okay, right. So there is the DESA as well, which is the District Explorer Scout Administrator. And they are line managed by the desk, appointed by the desk, and they help with the administration of the Explorer Scout provision. And what's really interesting about this role is the fact that they work together with the desk. But a GSL is seen as someone that helps to support the adult volunteers and make sure that the group continues to run effectively. The desk is almost, could be seen as a GSL for the Explorer Scout provision, and they are the desk. And the DESA is helping that desk to with all the administrative stuff. It could be a remit to that. There could be various different things. There aren't that many DESAs in Kent, but there is that role there to help support the District Explorer Scout Commissioner.
I know, talking to a few District Explorer Scout Commissioners, they love an administrator to come and help them out with a few things. And the great thing about it, as with all of these, is that they're flexible. And they fit around what you want to do. They don't require you going along every week. You could if you wanted to, though. That's the great thing. Although they're super flexible and you could do them from wherever, if you're still at home and you wanted to get sort of hands-on, there's nothing stopping you from doing that as well. The last thing I've got on this slide is assistant and deputy roles. And I think that's just to remind me to flag that although these are all manager roles and then you've got sort of the assistants and deputies off of them, they're a great place for 18 to 25s to start, but they don't have to start as an assistant or a deputy. I was a district youth commissioner from my 18th, which was great fun. I learned so much, but there wasn't a youth commissioner, so I didn't have anyone to deputise for. So I learned by being thrown in at the deep end rather than by learning from someone who'd been doing it for a while. But as I'm coming to the end of that DYC role in my district, I'm looking to help the next youth commissioner appoint deputies so that we bring up some those who are just leaving Explorers, so those who we're talking about exactly tonight, so that there is a youth commissioner and I can help mentor them, and then that youth commissioner can help mentor their deputies, so that then we've got that flow through into all of the other wonderful roles after they finish their 3 years as a youth commissioner. But then that's saying youth commissioner doesn't have to be the gateway. It's a great gateway, but assistants and deputy roles are everywhere that young people could get involved with.
One thing I will add on to all these roles are that I think a real key word for all these roles is communication. And these roles need to communicate with all the other leaders in scouting, the section assistants, the section leaders, all the other volunteers, and it could be some other support roles that we talk about in a minute. If they don't communicate with those other adult volunteers, then scouting cannot run effectively. They may have management duties, they may have these additional roles or titles, but scouting only works when they communicate with all the other adult volunteers.
Absolutely, and I'm going to lead on because you said that we were going to talk about support roles next, and these are all about helping out when and where you can. They're relatively low commitment to start with. However, you can grow into the role as much as you wanted, let's say. So you could do, I don't know, an hour every 6 weeks, or you could do an hour every week. That's not saying that you need to do a minimum of an hour every 6 weeks. That's just an example. It's for you to agree with the people you're working with as to how much you're going to do, and then to communicate with them if you want that to change for any reason. And the first thing I'm going to say before we look at specific roles and responsibilities that you could take on is that when we think about helping out, let's think about tasks and not roles. Let's think about what someone wants to do and what they want to get out of it, rather than what we're going to call them. We can work that out really easily later on. And some of the things that we're going to list in a minute will look like role titles, but that's just because that's the easiest way to describe what they're doing. If someone wanted to come along and help out and make tea and cook on camp, that's great. Those are some tasks that they want to undertake. The role we probably put them in might be Scout Active Support Member, but that's fine because we've thought about what they want to get out of it first. And where we're talking about flexible volunteering and just helping out when you can, it's a more approachable, engaging way, particularly for 18 to 25-year-olds, but for any volunteer to come in and say, I could do this, and not be told, well, this is the list of things you need to do. That said, let's move on and look at some of the responsibilities we could take on. So I briefly mentioned tea makers. We can be really casual with our language. You'll see some adverts, tea makers, minibus drivers, and give us a hand as like, and just anything you can think of that you might need help with, you could get someone to come along and help with that. The next thing is potentially helping out in some way as a quartermaster. So that might be looking after kit, maintaining it, checking it in and out, making sure you know where it is. And that's probably the role variant that we'd give them as quartermaster, but they might come along and say, oh, well, I'd love to help out, but I'm not that great with people, or I don't want to work with people. So maybe I could help out with the kit or making sure that the venue was all right and stuff. And then you'd say, oh, well, it sounds like you might want to do this. So would you be happy to take responsibility for the tents or the gas cookers, and work from there and work to what your volunteers are after? Okay, Nirav, I know you've got a couple of these roles, so do I, but tell us about the administrator roles.
Okay. The administrator role is, they can be at group level, it could be a district level. So a group administrator or district administrator, they help, or county administrator, they help with the administration of the relevant group, district or county. And this is quite an interesting role. It could work in the same way as the DESA role works, the District Explorer Scout Administrator role works. And it could be that they help with doing Compass. It could be that they help with making sure that the census is all up to is all done each year. It could be that they manage OSM. There's loads of various different things that that the administrator role does, and they can help support to make sure that the administrative side of scouting is kept up to date and all together.
I do enjoy doing this sort of stuff, but some people might come to you and say, oh, well, I like working with computers and I don't mind sending a few emails, but I'm not really on social media, so that wouldn't be right for me. And then you could go, oh, well, you could help make sure that everyone's in the right place. And then you'd give them that role so that they could do that effectively. Again, it's about looking at what they want to do, what they want to get out of it, how much time they can give, and saying, oh, well, it'd be really helpful if you could do this for us. And administrator roles are really flexible. They could come along and take minutes for you, or they could manage sort of disclosures, DBS checks, and even helping a GSL or line manager to monitor compliance, running reports for them so that then the GSL can take it forward with the relevant other members of the team. Leading on, I did briefly mention this in my little spiel just then. Social media publicity is something that we don't do enough as Scouts. We don't shout about ourselves in the right, well, when we do it, it's in the right way, but we don't shout about ourselves enough. We don't tell people what amazing things we do on a Thursday night every week at Scouts. We might tell people that, yeah, we're running a camp for 1,000 young people and they're going to have an amazing time, because you can get press attention for that and it's all amazing. But it's the general sort of maintenance of your websites and your social media pages, monitoring comments and messages and fielding inquiries that might come through that way, or even creating content, producing videos. It's a really flexible role that you can do with as much or as little as you like. And they don't necessarily have to be a content creator, although if someone wants to be, then that's brilliant. But they could just coordinate social media. They could have the Beaver leader send them something one week and then the Cub leader the next, and then do like a rotation. Then they just go, oh, Arcala, can you send me something this week, please? So that's a great one, especially because young people are media native in most cases. They're very happy to dive into a website and update copy, or to jump onto some graphic software and design you a social media post and slap a Scouts logo on it and do it all in brand. These are the sort of things that young people understand. And I think this is one of those on the list that really is a task rather than a role. And someone will come up to you and say, oh, I'm happy to help in this way, whether that's because they do it as a job or they want to be an influencer and they want some experience. It's really flexible. It's great fun. But equally, someone might just come and say, oh, I want to help out. And you go, oh, do you use Facebook or whatever socials you're using? And they go, oh, well, yeah, a little bit. And then they could grow into that role and learn the skills.
Social media has been something that has really helped my group to grow in the past. And now we're going through some difficult times with COVID. The majority of young people that join, parents get in touch through a website, district website, group website, or the national website. So a lot of our kind of image of scouting, if you're not involved with scouting, is online. And so social media is almost really important. It's very important to see, for people to see how we do things, what scouting is about. And social media is, that's how I grew my group, and it's something that I really do recommend for groups moving forward.
Brilliant. Then I've just seen what's next on the list. I'm going to take the next two, and then I'll let you take the last one, because I know that's something that you do as one of your many tasks and roles. So the next two that I'm going to pick up on are advisors and assessors. And you could have nights away advisors, you could have adventurous activity advisors or assessors, you could have a Duke of Edinburgh or Top Awards advisor. Basically anything in Scouts that might be a bit niche, or it might just be general, but you could have some advice on it. You could have inclusion advisors, special needs advisors, those sort of things. If a young person or anyone has got a passion for something or a particular skill set in it, then they could share that with other adult volunteers, usually in these roles. And again, they're really flexible, although you might tend to do things when people ask you to. So might not be right for everyone, but it's definitely there. And quite often these tasks and roles are completed by those that are more experienced. But if you've, I don't know, been a Sea Scout or your Explorer unit went kayaking every 2 weeks, you've probably got like some sort of qualification behind you that you could quite easily translate into a Scout permit and then help others to get there as well. So that's something. And then a different type of advisors. There you go, training advisors. Nirav, what are they?
Okay, so a training advisor is a really important role in Scouting, and we can't get enough of them because training is a huge part of Scouting for our adult volunteers and for compliance. So training advisors are there to help support the adults in Scouting with their training. So it could be that they sit down and run through some of the criteria for one of the modules, and then help them so that they can get that validated. And training advisors can validate the training on Compass and support them with that. It isn't just training advisors that deal with the training. There are also other training roles like local training managers that support the training across the district. And there are other roles. The line management roles also have access to update training records on Compass as well.
I think the really interesting thing with training advisors and trainers is that it's quite a flexible role. You'll probably end up doing it at times that other volunteers are about, so that it does remove that little bit of flexibility. But you get to talk to so many different people and to hear about the great things that are going on in Scouts here, there, and everywhere. You also can challenge leaders to say, oh, why don't you run a game from another country to get your international module validated, for example. So you can, although you're not having a direct impact on young people, you're making sure that the volunteers that are there have all of the skills and you're pointing them in the right direction. And you'll be sometimes dealing with some difficult situations where a volunteer hasn't understood the training requirements, and you might have to then suggest to them that they want to go back to their line manager and maybe change role or work out what their responsibilities are going to be. But then equally, you've got to communicate with relevant line managers, so GSLs and district commissioners, and then training managers as well, and the learners, and maybe someone else that's seen them validate something. So you virtually get around a lot, getting to talk to a lot of people, which for some people, they just want to come to Scouts and help. But they don't want to help with young people, they want to help adults, and they want to talk to lots of people. So why not get to grips with the training scheme and become a training advisor that way?
And also training advisors, some people might think that you have to have a lot of knowledge and experience about Scouting to be able to be a training advisor, but there is also training for training advisors. There is a module 25T, which is a module that helps training advisors to learn how to advise training as well. And obviously all of these roles can be done by young people. As we said, there's no restriction on any roles in Scouting for people.
So those are some of the support roles that we could think of based on what we've heard young people say, oh, could I help out with this somehow? If someone says, could I help out with this? 99% of the time, the answer is probably yes. You've just got to work out how it works for you and how you can do it in that way for them. And this is where we lead on to flexible volunteering. And this is the last point that we've got before we can take questions. And we're happy to take specific questions about how you could support your explorers to get involved in one way, or how you as a section leader could support 18 to 25s to get volunteering with you. But the important thing is, and we've alluded to it a little bit this evening, is that volunteering is flexible. It can work around university, it can work around shift work, it can work around difficult family lives. And then there's also the occasional helper role. It's more of a placeholder for a DBS check. But while someone's just coming along, sort of, maybe they've come to a camp because they don't really know what they want to help out with, but they want to help, so they've come to work out what they're going to do. And that's also a way that you can be really flexible whilst they're working out what it is they want to do. And that brings us to the end of opportunities for 18-year-olds or after explorers. And that's not the end of the opportunities. There are always more opportunities. There's international service team and contingent support team, unit leadership team for international events. There's helping out with local district camps and county jamborees like KIJ. The list is endless. If there's something in Scouts, it's there for someone who's just left Explorers to get involved with, or for anyone else for that matter. And we're always here to help steer people in the right direction. If someone goes, oh, well, I think I can bring this to Scouts, but where would I best be placed? Although that's not directly in our remit, part of our remit is making sure that young people go into roles in Scouts and they know where they're going. So we can definitely help signpost, and we're very happy to do that. Last thing to say is thank you very much for joining us.
I've got one more thing before we finish.
Go for it.
I would just wanted to also add into this and say that all these roles in Scouting, they all have different responsibilities and things, but it's only when everyone works together we can ensure that Scouting continues to grow and develop. So no matter what role people have, we all need to continue to work together, support each other, And that's the best way that we can continue to make sure that we provide amazing skills for life to our young people. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And we're happy to take some questions if you have, or if you've got anything you would like to ask us or say, then please feel free to do so.